Ahoy hoy, I'm Planet Walk, and if you're a regular viewer, you might be wondering what's going on with the background. It's transitioning, don't worry about it. Anyway, speaking of that, let's talk about MrBeast, because it seems that lately, MrBeast has been getting a whole lot of flack. Now, you might be wondering a few things like, what is a MrBeast, for example? And to answer that, he is the most subscribed YouTuber. Technically, T-Series does have more subscribers than him, but can you really count T-Series as a YouTuber? Anyway, his content seems to be him trying to do the wildest thing that he can think of, as well as philanthropy. Now, you may be wondering why I've decided to talk about him, and the answer is because people are silly. In case you haven't noticed, that generally seems to be what I talk about on this channel. Flat Earthers are just a classic example of people being silly, so yes, they get a very small mention in this video as well.
Tyler, do you realize what we just did?
I think I do.
We just proved the Earth is flat. I don't even know if we should release this footage. Like, a lot of the world's revenue comes from making globes. What are they gonna do now? No one likes flat math.
Apparently there were Flat Earthers that actually thought that was real and not a joke. You know, they're gonna be really disappointed when they find out that MrBeast went to Antarctica, which, you know, apparently you can't do because of the Antarctic Treaty. Anyway, with the Flat Earthers out of the way, let's talk about why people might be mad that MrBeast would dare cure people of blindness, or I've been told that people are mad about that anyway. A clip that seems to have gotten a lot of attention is a clip by Hassan, who is a political streamer on Twitch. And apparently, Hassan is mad at MrBeast, so let's take a look.
You watch the video, you go, oh, how cute and how nice. I watched the video and I'm filled with rage.
What's wrong with you?
Well, that clearly speaks for itself. Looks like Hassan gets angry when people do good things for other people. It's not like context could be important here or anything, and just to prove it to you, I'll show you more of the clip.
What's wrong with you?
That we shut off access to a 10-minute procedure because we paywalled it and decided that like some people just simply can't get it. It is so insanely frustrating that it like it's up to like one YouTube guy to like decide to make content out of it that like the people who are too poor can't just fucking see. That's insane.
Wait, so he's not actually mad at MrBeast, he's mad that these kinds of procedures are paywalled, and some people are unable to afford them, so without someone like MrBeast stepping in and saying, hey, I'll pay for it, they wouldn't be able to get them. So Hassan actually does have a point here, which, given the amount of people that I've seen trying to criticize Hassan for his take here, I thought he wouldn't. And to be fair, there seem to be a lot of people that seem to be misunderstanding other people's positions when it comes to MrBeast, especially on the left. For example, there was this thing that I saw a while back where it was Careful's responding to Hunter Avalone, responding to Careful's talking about MrBeast, and from what I could tell, they basically agreed, but were still criticizing each other. And if I recall correctly, their position was something like, yes, MrBeast is doing a good thing, but people shouldn't need to rely on the generosity of rich people in order to get surgeries like the one MrBeast paid for. In fact, that seems to be the position of most people on the left, except for maybe a few people who, shall we say, have some rather extreme takes. The most vocal of which, or at least that I could find, coming from the serfs. In response to someone saying that we need an evil MrBeast, the serfs responded by saying that he does poverty tourism for clicks. He's already evil. They also said, people honestly praising MrBeast yet again? The guy does poverty tourism for cash. If he pays a person's medical bills, lottery style, without informing anyone with his platform that it's fucked he needs to do that, he's just profiting off his ability to do so. Now, to me, this feels like saying, this person is not doing a thing in the particular way that I think that they should do it, so therefore what they're doing is bad. This feels rather silly to me because even though it has the same kind of vibe that Hassan's take has, Hassan wasn't saying that MrBeast was the bad guy here. If someone can help people out and make money by doing so, I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. It is unfortunate that philanthropy like that does need to happen, but things aren't that way because of MrBeast. Now you could say, okay, I agree with you, but MrBeast should do more. And this is where navigating stuff like this can get a bit tiresome, because there are people that have said to me that I should do more with my channel. And every time I try to do more with my channel, the videos do terribly. Like, if I ever step into something that someone doesn't want me to talk about, they'll say something like stick to science, even though what they want is they don't want me to stick to science. They want me to make fun of easy targets to make fun of, like flat earthers. And then when I do that, yes, I get a whole lot of views, which is wonderful. Yet people will come along and say, why are you talking about flat earthers? They're just silly, no one cares about them. You should talk about something else. And it's like, yes, I agree, I want to, but people don't seem to click on the videos where I do that. And for MrBeast, he probably has a better understanding of the YouTube algorithm than almost anyone on the platform. He is the most subscribed YouTuber after all. So he understands what is going to work and what isn't going to work. A lecture on the evils of capitalism probably isn't going to attract as many viewers as him doing something good for 1,000 people. At the very least, he is doing something good, even if he may not be doing it in the exact way some lefties want him to. Now, I do want to say that not everyone on the left agrees with the serfs on this one. In fact, funnily enough, the serfs actually deleted their tweet. I've seen people like Xanderhall, for example, criticize the serfs for the takes that I showed.
This was 5 hours ago after massive public outcry. His video about how he's paying for medical costs should have focused on that. His episode on prison should have been about how solitary confinement is torture, not renting out an old one for his friends for the lulz. This is legitimately just the left not knowing how to have fun. I'm sorry. The left needs to learn how to have fun.
So yes, even though it is people on the left that are saying that kind of stuff, it's not the entirety of the left. In fact, MrBeast did make a tweet that pretty much agreed with the kind of stuff that Hassan was saying. He said, I don't understand why curable blindness is a thing. Why don't governments step in and help? Even if you're thinking purely from a financial standpoint, it's hard to see how they don't return on investment on taxes from people being able to work again. And then Hank Green, who is green, responded to basically agree, I think. Now you can try to say, oh, maybe he just said that because he was getting backlash, and sure, but he has hundreds of millions of subscribers. If he had have said nothing, he would have been absolutely fine. He didn't have to make that statement. Now, that's not the only thing that people are mad at MrBeast for. Apparently, people are mad because he gave someone a car. Yeah, like, don't give anyone cars, people, because cars are bad.
What's the biggest tip you've ever gotten?
Like 50.
$50?
Yeah.
Has anyone ever tipped a car?
But in all seriousness, it wasn't MrBeast giving someone a car that people were mad at. It was what the car looked like that people were mad at.
Right over here, you'll see your brand new car.
Are you serious?
Yes. Because it looked like a spare company car, people were mad that MrBeast gave away a car that had a logo of his company on it. Never mind the fact that the person was just glad to have received a car.
Enjoy the car.
Thank you so much.
This is the weirdest thing to try and cancel MrBeast over. But to be fair, I only saw one person try to do that, and they received a lot of flack for trying to do that. Can people just please not be stupid? Is that too much to ask? I guess since flat earthers exist, yeah, that is too much to ask. Anyway, let's move on to the last thing, the thing that people seem to be the most furious over for some weird reason. So a person who was a part of the MrBeast crew called Chris decided to come out as trans, and you know, a lot of people were quite congratulatory towards them. In fact, MrBeast seemed quite supportive of them, because why wouldn't he be? I mean, they are his friend after all. But that didn't stop people from saying stuff like this.
The problem is this type of situation is probably the last thing that MrBeast wants to attract, as he's forced to agree with Chris's position, as he has no way of manipulating the situation without being painted as the bad guy. It's a lose-lose situation for MrBeast. Jimmy has no option but to publicly express acceptance of Chris's transition, as silence or even worse, disapproval would come with obvious severe repercussions. However, in accepting Chris's transition, Jimmy implies that this will be the new normal within the content, content, thus annoying a different group of people, many of whom will never express their true feelings and may rather simply click on fewer MrBeast videos.
Now, I think this kind of stuff completely misses the point, and MrBeast even expressed as much himself. In talking about the video that I just showed a clip of, MrBeast said, "Yeah, this is getting absurd. Chris isn't my nightmare, he's my fucking friend and things are fine. All this transphobia is starting to piss me off." Now, this is the kind of stuff that I like to see, because there are a lot of people that when they come out as trans, they go through a rough time because they might lose friends, their family might disown them even. I think an important thing for anybody that's transitioning is to have friends that will stick by you, because, you know, it's not fun to lose friends. Nobody likes that. Now, as much as I do like this kind of thing happening, MrBeast here isn't really doing anything extraordinary or profound or something like that, because he's doing really what any good friend would do for a friend. Sticking by them. I think this tweet also highlights that it's not just trans people that have to deal with transphobia, it's also cis people that might just be supportive of trans people that have to deal with it. In fact, MrBeast has gotten tired of it. I know another cis person who's gotten tired of transphobia. FTFE, or at least I'm pretty sure he's cis. I had a conversation with someone in the community a while back who said, you know, FTFE could be trans for all you know, and that just popped into my head right there, so I had to clarify that. Anyway, I think MrBeast's statement there was fine, although some people might say, did MrBeast use the wrong pronouns because he referred to Chris as he? And Chris uses any pronouns, so again, that's fine. But someone who did have a problem with MrBeast's statement was Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh, either completely missing the point or trying to dodge it entirely, made a video titled MrBeast sells out to the trans cult. MrBeast is an entirely different YouTuber.
Because even the most family-friendly content, the most seemingly innocuous, as most of MrBeast's content appears to be, can subtly, or not so subtly, introduce concepts that will take your child down a very dark path. And in the case of MrBeast, that path has been opened by his sidekick and co-star on his videos named Chris Tyson.
You know, there was something a few years back in 2016, that everyone made fun of, and it was people saying that Pokemon Go is introducing demons to kids and stuff like that. This sounds exactly like that. It's just satanic panic stuff that's been rebranded to try and sound not quite as crazy, but it still sounds crazy when you think about it.
Finally, last week, Tyson came out as trans and confirmed that he's been on hormone replacement therapy for the past 2 months. Explaining his decision, Tyson tweeted, quote, "Informed consent HRT saved my and many others' lives. The hurdles GNC, gender nonconforming people, have to jump through to get life-saving, gender-affirming healthcare in a first-world country is wild to me. Just let people make informed decisions about their own bodies."
I just have to say that I 100% agree with Chris here, because getting on HRT, even in a place like New Zealand, a place that is pretty good towards trans people, all things considered, is still difficult. I know people that are still trying to get on HRT, but they haven't heard back from their doctors yet. It can take over a year from the time that you go into the doctors and ask your doctors about hormones, to the time that you actually start hormones. As an adult.
But first, we have MrBeast's own reaction to all of this. Yesterday, he sent out a tweet blasting those who've raised concerns about having a transitioning, quote-unquote, man appear constantly in videos meant for kids. He called it absurd and said that, called the concerns absurd, that is, and said that all this transphobia is starting to piss me off.
Look, Matt, trans people exist, and I don't think it's reasonable to expect no trans person to appear in anything that a kid might end up watching. To say that trans people shouldn't exist in something that a kid might watch would be like me saying that Christians shouldn't appear in something that a kid might watch. That would be equally ridiculous because Christians also exist. I disagree with a lot of things when it comes to Christianity, but I don't want to bar Christians from anything, even though I disagree with them. Because, you know, Christians exist.
Now, admittedly, MrBeast has been put in an extremely difficult situation because he built a multi-million-dollar empire with innocuous, family-friendly content targeted at kids, and now his friend and collaborator and sidekick has decided to turn these videos into a sort of visual journal of his gender transition.
Matt, you do realize that MrBeast's videos aren't about Chris, right? By your own logic, this would have been some kind of visual journal of their life already, so transitioning doesn't change that. It's just another thing to go in that journal, right?
So MrBeast has a choice. He can either kick Tyson off of the team and then be excoriated as a transphobe, or he can come out fully in favor of transgenderism, and he can stay, therefore, in the graces of the good graces of the media and LGBT activists, even if it means alienating a huge portion of his fan base, and especially the parents of his fan base. Well, unsurprisingly, he chose the latter.
Okay, people like Matt are completely missing the point here, because he's thinking about it in terms of business decisions. In reality, it has nothing to do with that, because all it's about is just being a good friend. That was the whole point of MrBeast's tweet, in fact. How do you dodge the point that much, Matt? Let me give you an example here. FTFE is a good friend of mine. Let's say that I'm wrong about FTFE, and they come out as trans. I'm not going to suddenly stop being friends with them, just because me being friends with them might be a detriment to my channel. Because transphobia aside, that's just called being a dick. Although here in New Zealand would say being a dick. And FTFE would do the same. If Psyman Dan came out as trans, he would still have I suppose it wouldn't be Psyman Dan if Psyman Dan came out as trans, but he would still have Psyman Dan on his channel. Sometimes things like friendships are more important than business relations, even though some friendships might hurt your brand.
And now that he's gone down this road, there's really no coming back. You can expect much more pro-trans content from MrBeast going forward.
Look, I haven't seen much of MrBeast's content, but from what I have seen, it doesn't really seem to be pro-trans. But it's not really anti-trans either. If trans people exist in something, that doesn't make it pro-trans, it just means that trans people exist in a thing. You know, I don't think that trans people simply existing should be seen as some kind of fucking political statement, some big giant statement that, oh, you're going outside? Well, that's a political statement if you're trans. What about cis people? Oh, no, they're fine. They're not a political statement because they're normal. And everything normal is good. You know what used to be considered normal? Being white. Being black was seen as being different. But we've changed. You know, that's not acceptable now. But saying that someone is trans, therefore they're a political statement, that's fine, because that's not racism. It's just a different type of bigotry that some people have deemed as acceptable. No, it's the same shit. Different decade. Now, I know that there are going to be people that will see that and go, ha ha, Planet Walk is just a triggered little soy boy cuck. Can't even engage with Matt Walsh's arguments or something along those lines. And yeah, this kind of shit does make me angry. But it's because Matt Walsh isn't engaging in good faith. He does seem to want to just get rid of trans people. A lot of my friends are trans. What, do you want... Am I supposed to just be okay with someone saying, yeah, they're not allowed to do that? They should just live a miserable life because he doesn't like that. My friends just want to live their life, be happy. And I'm sure that Chris wants to do the same thing. I'm sure that they don't want to have to be thinking, well, I guess I can't be happy because I get seen by kids. No, fuck off with that shit, Matt. And just to be clear, Matt doesn't think that Chris should be trans at all. Matt thinks that there's only a small portion of your life in which you're allowed to be trans if he thinks that you're allowed to be trans at all.
Here's the thing. Transitioning is wrong, always and every time. First, because it's impossible. You cannot transition from one sex to the other. But even if we lived in the sort of science fiction universe where such a thing was possible, it would still be wrong to do it when you're married and you have a child. Like, if I believed in the reality of transitioning, I would still say that by the time you get married and conceive a child, the transition ship has sailed. It is your responsibility now, it's your obligation to suppress that part of you and live as the man that your wife and child need you to be.
See, not making this up, I really do understand the frustration that MrBeast expressed in his tweet, because people like Matt, they may be making arguments that to a lot of people may seem sane, but all it is starting from a place of transphobia and trying to justify that. It doesn't really matter what they use to justify it, just as long as they can use something. And this is what is turning everything around trans people into political statements, even though it shouldn't be a political statement. Like, if I have a trans friend, that shouldn't be some kind of grand political statement. If MrBeast has a trans friend, it shouldn't be a political statement. He can have cis friends and it's not a political statement, but as soon as they're a trans friend, then it's political. Oh dear. I just realised something. So, whilst recording this, Steven Crowder talked about it. So I watched the Steven Crowder thing, and it wasn't really as deranged as the Matt Walsh thing. It did have some of the same talking points, which I don't like, but for the most part, it was more bearable. But here's the funny thing. MrBeast was only mentioned briefly once in the whole thing that I watched. Just once. And it was basically a point that SunnyV2 made in his video, but I didn't really think it was important, so let me show the SunnyV2 clip.
In a recent livestream titled Opening 1,000 Mystery Art Boxes, Chris would once again dress in quite a feminine way, and while everybody participated as usual, the energy and vibe didn't feel nearly as smooth as it normally does. It felt as though there was an unaddressed elephant in the room, and therefore everybody was in their head, as opposed to being in the present moment enjoying each other's company. Maybe everybody was simply too busy opening packages, but Chris did make these bizarre jokes about Jimmy being female, making him incredibly uncomfortable.
Oh my god, Jimmy, look, they drew you. Jimmy, they drew you so well. It looks just like you.
Oh, yes.
Oh my god, it's Jimmy.
How did fan art? This is what we were looking for.
So one of the things I kind of find weird is how all of a sudden, everybody becomes a body language expert when someone acts a little bit weird. I sure hope that nobody tries to do the whole body language analysis on me, because I don't body language good. You'll be wrong if you try. Put it that way. But I find it weird that Steven Crowder, someone who has access to all the information in this video, basically made the same argument that SunnyV2 made. At the end of the day, we don't need to wonder whether MrBeast supports his friend or not, because he's already come out and said that he does. Of course, there will be people that won't like that and are trying to look for reasons why MrBeast is actually on their side, but in reality, these types of people are just a small minority. Most people will just congratulate Chris on coming out and wish them well on their journey. It's just annoying that there are people out there like Matt Walsh that are trying to make this something different than what it actually is. Anyway, those are the reasons that I can think of as to why people seem to not like MrBeast all that much lately. Leave a like and subscribe if you like this video, and leave a comment letting me know what sort of videos you want me to make. As always, a big shout out to my $20 or more patrons. Hugh Jarsz, M.C.Nutkin, Nathaniel Muller, Vermont1777, Wolfie, Morrie, Graymore Ghost, KidVicious, Sacha Campbell, definitely not NASA, Craig D'Amelio, and Richard M. Chapman. If you want to support me financially, you can do so on Patreon. There should be a link there. But anyway, I will see you in the next video. Between you and me, thank you for watching.